Give me the next 20 minutes and I will teach you everything you need to know about typography for the rest of your design career. Most people think that typography is about choosing fonts. It's really not. Typography is how your text behaves. You're watching Design OS and this is episode 1 of Building a Design System. In today's episode, we're going to type but make it a system. Most typography mistakes don't come from bad taste. They come from confusion. People use the right tools, but for the wrong reasons. So we'll start by slowing down, going over the basics, and then we can move on to how to actually create a typography system. Feel free to jump around in this video in case you already know the basics. Let's start with the most common confusion. What is a typeface and what is a font? A typeface is the design of the letters. For example, Inter, Roboto, Helvetica, these are all typefaces. A font is a specific configuration of the typeface. So for example, Inter Regular, that is a font. Think of it like music. Your favorite song is a typeface and a specific recording of the song, say the live version or the acoustic version or the remastered version, is the font. Design systems don't store typefaces, they store fonts. Font size is simply how big the letters are, but in interfaces, font size means hierarchy. A product name at 32 pixels demands attention, while a helper text at 12 pixels stays out of the way. Font weight controls the thickness of the letters. You must have heard of things like regular, medium, semi-bold, and bold. This can also be represented using numbers. Weights are how we emphasize text without changing size. In a table, the value might be regular, the label might be medium, the total might be bold. Same size, different meaning. Line height is the vertical distance between lines of text. It controls readability. If the line height is too tight, text feels cramped. If the line height is too loose, text feels disconnected. Good line height always just disappears. Tracking and kerning are related, but they're not the same. Tracking adjusts the spacing between all letters equally, while kerning adjusts the spacing between specific letter pairs. Letters like A and V often require custom spacing. That's called kerning. Design systems almost never touch kerning. We control tracking. If your text feels too tight or too loose, then you need to go ahead and change your tracking. Let's talk about some font classifications. These really dictate what kind of voice does your text have. Serif fonts have small strokes at the end of their letters. They feel traditional, editorial, and expressive. The best examples are books, newspapers, and even luxury brands. If your product wants to feel established, serif fonts help. Sans serif fonts remove these strokes. They feel clean, modern, and more functional. Most apps, dashboards, SaaS products, they all use these. Sans serif is popular because it stays neutral. Monospace fonts give each character the same width, which is why they're called monospaced. They feel technical and are used in code editors, for transaction IDs, system logs, and anywhere where alignment really does matter. Font classifications set the tone for your designs, and tone does set expectations in the users, so we need to make sure that we are choosing fonts carefully. Let's switch gears and talk about how you can go about selecting a font. There is no shortcut here, only a simple process. Before opening Google Fonts, ask one question to yourself. What are you building? Are you building a kids game that needs friendly shapes? Maybe a crypto trading app that needs clarity and trust? Or a corporate dashboard that requires restraint? If you head over to Google Fonts, you'll be able to see that Google Fonts now allows you to filter by feeling or by appearance, and there are a bunch of other filters that you can use to narrow down options. Make sure you do this before you decide on what font you want to have in your design system. And it's okay to reuse fonts that you already trust. Most designers actually do that. I'll put up some fonts that I personally use in all the designs that I create. And for pairing fonts, tools like Font Pair show tested combinations. You can go ahead and check it out using the link in the description. The honest truth here is that typography selection is subjective. You have to try things, you have to design screens, you have to get feedback from all your stakeholders, and you have to iterate. Taste comes from experience. There is no YouTube video that skips this step. Let's talk about the levels of type and why text needs roles and not sizes. Design systems don't think in pixels. They don't start with 14 pixels or 16 pixels, they think in roles. Because text isn't just decoration, it carries meaning, hierarchy, and intent. Almost every product interface uses a small set of text roles, and each role answers to a different question for the user. These are all of the text roles, and let's go over them one by one. Display text is for big moments. It introduces a page, it sets an emotional tone, it's used sparingly, never for long reading, and examples of this can be the homepage headline, a balance total, or a success state. Headings organize content. They create structure, they help users scan, and they answer what is this section about. And examples for this are transaction histories, recommended for you, account settings, and so on. Body text is for reading. This is where comprehension matters most. It appears in paragraphs, descriptions, explanations, and this is the most frequent font size that you'll use. Examples are help copy, empty state descriptions, terms and conditions, and so much more. Label text support interactions, they guide actions, they sit close to controls, and they must be clear, compact, and predictable. Examples can be button labels, input labels, or just tab names. Overlines are a decorative or a stylistic text treatment, usually an uppercase text, and they're generally used sparingly to add emphasis, separation, or visual interest to a certain space. A single page of your UI design might use all 5 of these levels, so it's extremely important that we assign these roles and make sure that we as designers understand what each role does. Let's move on to naming and structuring, how you can create a system that is scalable. In a system, every text style starts with a base, display, heading, body, label, overline, the stuff that we just talked about, and the base defines the role of the text. Then you can have a couple of modifiers. Most design systems use 2 modifiers after the base, and the modifiers define how that role behaves. So, modifiers are usually size, weight, emphasis, or content. For example, display large bold can be a big, expressive, and high impact font. Body small regular can be dense information and for secondary reading. Label medium semi-bold can be for interactive elements that need clarity. This structure lets you scale without reinventing anything in your design system. Naming is communication, and it's how designers talk to developers. It's how new teammates understand the system, and when styles are inconsistent, people stop trusting the system altogether. And once trust breaks, everyone starts creating their own styles. So make sure that you stick to a simple naming scheme that everyone can understand. Before we move on to font sizes, let's talk about relative sizing, or REM or REM. Pixels don't scale, they lock your designs to a single assumption, but interfaces live on different screens, different settings, different accessibility needs. REM is relative. It scales based on a single base value and then changes everything. Here is a CSS example of how REM actually works. If the root font size here is 16 pixels, then 1 rem equals 16, 2 rem equals 32, and 0.875 rem will equal 14. Now, if I change the root size, then the entire system updates. That's not just convenience, that's accessibility by design, because a lot of people require higher font sizes and a lot of people prefer lower font sizes. So if you just change the base value, you've just created a very accessible design for everybody. Figma doesn't directly support rem, but you can design with ratios in mind. You define consistent steps and you reuse the proportional values. This forces discipline. We'll touch more upon this when we actually start creating later on in this video. Now that we understand rem, we can start talking about font sizes. We talked about the levels of type before, and you might think that each different level will require different font sizes. That's just not true. In a real system, sizes do overlap. A label and a body text can both be 14 pixels, That's not a mistake, that's just intent. For example, a 14 pixel body text is optimized for reading, while a 14 pixel label text is optimized for interactions. Same size, different jobs. And that's why roles matter more than numbers. Let's now quickly go over the rest of the terms that you need to know before you start creating your own design system. First one is line height. Line height is quite self-explanatory. It's the height of each line of your text. And line height isn't just about symmetry, it's about comfort. Smaller texts need more line height because letters are dense, and larger texts need less line height because shapes already breathe. This directly impacts multi-line readability as well. What you're seeing right now are guidelines, they're not laws. Every font behaves a little differently than the last one. Some feel taller, some feel tighter. So trust your eyes and not just the formula that you see on your screen. Letter spacing is the last thing that you need to understand before we jump into Figma. Letter spacing, as I explained earlier, is the space between two letters of your text. Smaller texts need more space to stay legible, and large texts need tighter space to feel more intentional. Default letter spacing values of every font will almost never feel good, so make sure that you change letter spacing every time you type something. And that's it. Good typography isn't loud, it's calm, it's readable, and it feels invisible. And typography feels premium when every space is intentional. Alright, we are done with the theory part of this video. Let's now jump into Figma and create a type scale system for our design system. And I want you to do this with me. You can try using any app or designs that you might have already created. For me, I have this app that I've already made, and it's just 3 screens for now. It's a financial app where people can send money to other people. And these 3 screens are extremely important for us because these set the base of how our type scale system will work. So I'll just walk you through the screens here. The first one is an internal amount screen where somebody's sending some money to someone. And the second one is an information sheet where we mention certain things about the balance. So this is perfect for us to derive our body and subtext copy from. And finally, we have the success screen as well. And just a side note, you can see that this is using a combination of both serif and sans serif fonts. Serif fonts are being used for these large display texts, and sans serif fonts are being used where users will read a lot more. So let's jump in and start creating our text styles. Let's start from the beginning and see the different types of fonts that are being used here. So this heading is 24 pixels. This sort of body text, sort of title text is 18 pixels. Then we obviously have this massive display text that is 72 pixels. This text again. Then I have this sort of label, maybe body text at 14 pixels. Then I have the keyboard text that's 24. This text is 20. And the CTA text is also 20. Let's take a look here. This text is 12 pixels. This text is 14. And finally, some of the text here. This is 18 and this is 20. So I have some sort of an idea. I've seen 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, and 72 pixels here. So those are sort of the sizes that I'll try to play around with. Obviously, we need to create a system that can be scaled more later on. So the first text style I'll define is 16 pixels, and that's the body text. And if I remember correctly, this particular one is 16 pixels. So I'll go ahead and define this as the first body style. Click plus. So I can name this as body, which is our base, 1, which is my first modifier, and I can add a second modifier for medium. So that is the weight of this font. I can add some descriptions, but I'll do that later. So create style, that is body 1 medium done. And I can go ahead and deselect everything, then go to text styles, and I can change certain things here. So let's say I don't like minus 0.5 pixels. I can change this to minus 4.5, and that updates in Figma directly as well. And what I can also do is edit the line height. So if you remember the formula, that was about 140 to 150% for body text. So that would give me a value of 22 or 24. So 22 actually looks a little off in this because as you can see, the size grows a little too much for my liking. So I'll keep it back at 20 only. And this is the first example of why you shouldn't stick to the rules that I mentioned before in the video. Those are just for direction. Make sure that you're able to come up with text styles that work for your design and not just follow the rules blindly. So that's body 1 medium. I can go ahead and define this particular text as body 2. because our user is going to read this, and this is definitely body. So I'll go ahead and define this particular style as body 2. This particular one is regular, and create style. I can also go ahead and define these two texts, which are quite small, so 12 pixels, as subtext. So I'll go ahead and add this as subtext. Both of these are regular. And as you can see, while naming this, I did not name it as subtext 1 or subtext 2. I just used subtext dash regular because I'm not going to be defining a subtext 1 or subtext 2. It's just going to be subtext. If you want, you can go ahead and do multiple subtexts as well, but my recommendation is to just keep one. So let's go ahead and create the style. And let's go ahead and create a few styles around the first screen. So the display one is the easiest one to create here. Let's go ahead and add display 1 dash regular. So this particular font, DM serif display that I'm using here, this font only has a regular style or an italic style. So regular is fine here. What we can do is go ahead and change this from display 1 regular to just display 1, because this particular font doesn't have any other variations. It's just regular. So I'll go ahead and just call this display 1. One thing you'll notice about text styles while you're creating them from a base design is that these get a little out of hand if you don't order them properly. So we'll make sure that all of our text styles are easy to use, because let's say I'm creating a new design here and I start typing something. So this can be my text. And I go ahead and I try to select fonts, and then I have to see that 16, 14, 12, and then suddenly it's 72. So it was descending, then suddenly I have a big size here. So we need to make sure that our text styles are always either in a descending order or an ascending order. We can do this by going into the settings of our display font, calling it display / display 1. That will put this inside a group of display text. I'll add a group for body as well. So body / body 1 medium. Similarly, body / body 2 regular. And I can add subtext to a group as well. So subtext / subtext regular. And then I can move these groups around. So I can move display to the top. Then I have body. Then I have subtext. And let's go ahead and define a title now. This particular bottom sheet title is the best way to go. So let's go ahead and create a new text style. We can call this title / title 1 dash bold, and create style, and make sure that we keep titles right above our body text. We can also rename these as headlines. That is what I've been using in the entire video, but title feels a little more apt for me in this particular app. So I'll just keep on using title, and let's create a few more titles. I can go ahead and create a title style out of these two as well. So this particular one can be title / title 2 dash bold or semi-bold, create, and as you can see, it will go inside that particular title group as well. And this is how I would always recommend you to define your text styles. Make sure you create the designs first and iterate on them. Make sure you have stakeholder sign off, and then you go ahead and define styles instead of creating styles first and then sort of fitting your design into the styles. Your text scales should always be curated and not created. So make sure that you create designs first and then create the text styles. If you want to visualize your text styles like almost all design systems do, what you can do is you can go ahead and search for a plugin called Kigen, K-I-G-E-N, and click on it, run. This will give you an option to present, where you can see I have 6 text styles. I can go ahead and present all, confirm. And this will go ahead and quickly give me a presentation of all the styles I've created so far. So I have display, title 1, title 2, body 1, body 2, and subtext. I can go ahead and change the styling of all of this, obviously, but this is a very quick way to get all of your text styles presented and for sharing with developers as well. You can go ahead and create more screens and create more text styles out of it. But I hope you get the idea of how to actually create text styles, and I hope this video helped you out. And you can now go ahead and practice how to create text styles. If this video helped you out, please go ahead and hit the like button and share it with a designer friend, and I'll catch you in the next video.